Germany's president has warned of a deep rift with the United States and says the war on Iran is a breach of international law. Although Frank-Walter Steinmeier's role is largely ceremonial, his comments were unusually strong in a country which has not officially condemned the joint U.S.-Israeli military campaign.
Our foreign policy does not become any more convincing simply because we do not call a breach of international law a breach of international law. We had to grapple with this during the Gaza war, and we must also deal with it in the Iran war. For in my view, this war is a breach of international law. There is little doubt about that. In any case, the justification of an imminent attack on the United States does not hold water. This seems to be the view currently held in parts of the American intelligence services as well.
France's military chief has also voiced frustration about the conflict. Speaking at a defense forum in Paris, he accused the U.S. of being an unreliable partner.
We were surprised by an American ally who remains an ally, but who is becoming increasingly unpredictable and doesn't even bother to inform us when they decide to launch military operations. It has an impact on our security. It has an impact on our interests.
Mayall is a retired British Army general and a former Middle East advisor at the UK Ministry of Defence, and he joins us now from London. General, it's good to have you on. Thank you very much. I want to get your reaction first to these comments from Germany, calling the war in Iran a breach of international law. How strong is it for a US ally to come out with words like that?
Well, it is, and for a head of state of Germany to make those comments. Which will have, of course, been cleared with the government. Germany is a major ally, and I listened to the comments of, again, a senior French general. These are worrying cracks in what has been for a long time a very, very important alignment of interests and alliances through NATO and many, many other organizations between the North Americans, I call them Americans, and the Canadians, and Western Europeans. So there is undoubtedly what's going on in Iran is putting pressure on domestic politics and leading to sort of international fragmentation, without doubt. But it's worrying, and it's another reason why we'd like to bring this to a halt sooner rather than later.
What is the most worrying thing about it? Is it worrying for the fact that the entire bloc of Europe and North America are security partners in another way in NATO? Is it worrying for the U.S. campaign in Iran? What is the most troubling by your estimation?
I think I've always used the expression, if you want to understand a problem, you've got to get yourself a bigger map. And undoubtedly the reverberations, although they focus on freeing up the Straits of Hormuz, are really having an impact. Listening to your interviews from the Far East, knowing what's happening in my own country, watching the domestic issues in America, watching Russia and Ukraine. The connectivity is really vital to grasp. I think, dare I say, Al Jazeera does a very good job of it. I do worry significantly about a breakaway from the assumption that, and I speak rather parochially here as a former British general, a breakdown in the assumption that the Americans and the Western Europeans or Europeans are fundamentally aligned on major security issues, talk to each other, coordinate with each other. That has real significance for the coming decade.
And what does that mean for countries like the UK, perhaps, who are, sitting outside of the European Union now, who are looking at this and trying to figure out where they fit in? I want to get your thoughts on where the UK stands on all of this, given that it says it's taking a defensive position, but should it be more concerned about its bases in Cyprus and Diego Garcia, given the events of the last month?
To be honest, as a military man, I don't think from a straight military point of view, we need to be overly worried. Cyprus is well defended now. Dragon has at last got there. I could criticize the speed in which it got there. Diego Garcia is a very long way away from anything the Iranians could, frankly, credibly push at it. But our great friends in the Gulf, our Bahraini friends, Oman, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, all of those are really, really hugely important to British national interest. We've got relationships going back decades. And as you well know from Al Jazeera, we have several 100,000 British out there. And again, for Britain, we should be leaning into this. It does make it difficult when our European allies are pulling away from the Americans, because we have always seen ourselves very firmly as a bridge between the North American aspects of NATO and, of course, the European aspects. And I think we can straddle that well. But we're a permanent member of the Security Council. We sit next door to, in almost every conference, to the United States by virtue of alphabet. And anything that puts a pressure on our natural alignment, or the natural alignment of Western democracies, is I would argue, bad globally.
As a military man, do you see a situation where this carries on, that the UK, anybody in Europe, may take a more than defensive position here? What would it take for them to do that?
Everybody will have plans for it. Because of the political rhetoric, and I'm sure you'll have reported on this and know it well, there's an awful lot of activity, diplomatic, military, coordinating, going on behind the scenes. And that's in every sphere. I guarantee all the Gulf leaders also have their chains of communication to the Iranians. The Israelis certainly will. The Americans will. It's very difficult to know what's going on. But the Gulf is a hugely important part of the world. We've always known that, but by goodness, the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz has really brought that home. And I am interested at what stage the Gulf states feel that they, with huge stake in this, but having taken no action against the Iranians, do suddenly find that the attacks on them lead them into coming into this war. And I'm sure, again, they're warning the Iranians. So some of this talk over the weekend by Trump, ignored or dismissed by Iran, I suspect does reflect that in Iran they really are also extremely worried that the regime, or Iran itself as a sovereign entity, the integrity of Iran, is very brittle, very fragile, and under threat at the moment if they continue to be obdurate about clearing the Strait of Hormuz.
General Mayall, it's good to have your insight here. Thank you for joining us on Al Jazeera.
Thank you indeed.